What's going on there, guys? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster here on this Friday evening, March 11th, 2022. I remember that date very well. Back in 2011, the major earthquake back in Japan. I am out here with my beautiful, absolutely stunning co-host, Missy Mimes. What's going on, Missy Mimes?
How's it going, guys? What's going on there?
She got a
Handsome.
she got her hair did today, so to speak. I don't know how they say it, but hair done, and she looks absolutely stunning. So just
Thank
kind
you.
of just kind of expressing that out here on the live stream for everyone in the world to hear tonight. So all right, what's going on out there, folks? There's a lot of earthquake activity happening out here today, including the latest quake on the globe, a 4.0 earthquake into the Indonesia region at 170 kilometers, seeing a swarm of deep movement, and in general, earthquake activity spread out around this area of the globe today. Let's go ahead and check out the latest info here on the map. By the way, you see that Mendocino station there showing some earthquake activity into Northern California, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and check out the latest data here on the USGS map. Seeing a swarm and a push of activity here on the western part of the Pacific Plate, working its way westward towards the Java Trench area. This area around the Java Trench has been pretty quiet. Not seeing any movement here today, according to the USGS. Go ahead and zoom into the states. We'll kind of start out here for the latest data, where we're still seeing some earthquake movement up into Montana area. We're going to start up there tonight around the Lincoln, Montana area. This is on the outer edge of the North American Craton, and you can kind of see it on the map. It's kind of where the Rockies begin, so to speak, or at least end in this matter. Kind of see the flat line. If you've ever been out here through the Rocky Mountains area, you kind of see the area of the North American Craton region. I'm going to show you just a real quick map here, and we'll zoom in, or at least look at this view. North American Craton, continental crust that has remained relatively stable for the past 600 million years. Okay, so all areas around it are deforming, they're warping, they're growing, they're subducting. That's how you get the mountain ranges up against this North American Craton region that extends well up into the Greenland area and areas of Canada, but also into portions of Texas as well. So that's kind of where the Yellowstone area is, down here in Wyoming, and where we're seeing that movement into Montana. This kind of looks like a face right here. See that?
Yeah.
I just kind of seen that. But yeah, right up against the western edge here of the North American Craton is where we're seeing that activity strike relatively deep into Montana. Looking at the earthquake activity that in question up here, right up against here, you can kind of see where it ends. We're looking at a pretty good swarm of movement south of Lincoln, northwest of Helena, which sits down here to the southeast by about 30 miles or so. 14 earthquakes in the Lincoln, Montana region, and the depths are pretty stable at about 14 kilometers or so in the area of the swarm. The largest quake so far, a 3.3. I went and pulled back the latest, or at least the historical data around Lincoln, and specifically around Lincoln area. We've had a couple earthquakes out there. Back in 2017, a 5.8 and a 5.0. I pulled up 4.5 and above over the last 500 years, but of course the USGS does not show that far back, obviously, but just for fun I did. And definitely some earthquake activity, and look at the depths there, 14, as the swarming activity we're seeing today, or at least over the last 24 hours. So earthquake activity does happen in this region of the state of Montana, and it looks as though it's on the specific fault zone called the Helena Fault, Helena Valley Fault, just to the west of there, actually. And there's also one more fault zone further to the west, kind of somewhat in between there, but closer to the Helena Valley Fault. This fault has been mapped as a bedrock structure for more than 20 years, but considerable doubt has existed about its sense and recency of movement. There is a little bit of activity. I'm not going to read all of this. What's the other fault system?
To its
To its west.
its west or its east. There's the Hilger Fault, which is to its east and above the Helena Valley Fault, and then the other fault zone, which kind of comes down, is the Swan Fault.
Swan Fault. So there's a couple different fault systems out there where this earthquake activity is taking place today. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but there's definitely been a little bit of study, it looks like, in specific fault areas on the Helena Fault, which sits over here to the southeast a little bit. But it's definitely it's an interesting swarm for sure here in the region of Lincoln and the Helena, Montana area. And we're gonna kind of keep an eye on it. Just kind of an interesting deal here. I don't believe it's associated with Yellowstone because Yellowstone sits way down to the south here, and the caldera does not extend that far. But it's kind of right up against the North American Craton, and that's sometimes what we see there at that depth there with the earthquakes. Also, some movement inland. Idaho really ramping up on the earthquake activity as well, including an upper 3.8 magnitude earthquake earlier this afternoon, I should say, at about 8.2 kilometers, right at the northern end of the Sawtooth Fault system, right in the area where we've seen that 6-pointer strike here. I believe it was a 6.1, 6.3, I can't remember exactly, there in the Idaho area about 2 years ago. Same for the Nevada area. We've seen that 6-pointer hit. But anyway, aftershock sequences can continue for quite a long time in this region, and I believe that's what we're seeing there today with the activity around the Sawtooth Fault Zone in Idaho. Yellowstone National Park, not a whole lot shown up here on the map. Looks like USGS focusing on a couple small microquakes out around the southwestern edge of the caldera and up here around West Yellowstone. We'll go ahead and check out the Yellowstone overview for verification, right? I kind of have to verify everything we're seeing online now, right? And the live data, or at least the recorded data, shows the activity up into Montana. These are all the Montana earthquakes here striking earlier today. And I'm sure the 3.8 was recorded as well. I'd like to go back and check out the UTC time of these earthquakes. The 3.8 occurred at 2059 UTC time. So we'll go back over here and look at least one of these. What was it? I forgot it.
2059.
2059. There we go. 2059 on one of these seismograph stations.
Yeah, it was that one.
2059. 2059 would be right here. Right here, the latest. That's a 3.8 in Idaho. 2030.
Yep.
This is UTC time over here to the right. So 2059, roughly about here, 3.8 occurring. But these other signatures are from the Montana quakes up there, the threes that are kicking up in the region. Far as local activity goes, we're not seeing any movement really to chat about here in the earthquake department on Yellowstone. So most of this is distant, but nonetheless showing up throughout the seismographs there at Yellowstone National Park from the quakes there in Montana and Idaho. Salt Lake City, what's going on up here? A little bit of swarming going on around the Windover area of Utah, 2.1 and 2.5. Some deeper movement as well, 9.2 and 8.9. You notice how all this activity inland has kicked up ever since we've seen the return of the tremor out here along the west coast. For about 7 days now straight, we have seen a return of tremor along the Cascadia subduction zone, and ultimately activity has really ramped up here inland into Montana and into the Intermountain West region. Not only that, but look at the west coast, really kicking up since we've seen that return of pressure and the slippage, if you will, along the Cascadia subduction zone. Up here into Northern California, one little earthquake being recorded by the USGS at 2.2 near the Big Bend area at 1.1 kilometers. Sits to the southeast of Mount Shasta.
But we know there's a lot more than that. I mean,
definitely there's some activity. We've seen one earthquake coming in just a few minutes ago to the Mendocino area in Northern California. But as you can see, nothing showing up here on the map when it comes to earthquake activity. It's blah is what it is, and it's irritating. Let's go ahead and check out the latest tremor map tonight, which I think is pretty impressive. 266 epicenters of tremor. So I believe we're officially calling an end to the quiet spell along the Cascadia. We've seen that quiet spell kick up back in December, about early December, and since then, up until about a week ago, we had only seen a couple days of tremor activity, and it only consisted of maybe a few here, a few there. But today's day number 7 of the tremor activity that we're seeing in the higher range. 266 epicenters of tremor. Most of it, there's some activity up here in the Vancouver Island ranges, but most of it into the Northern Cal and the Central Oregon area, or not Central Oregon. I know the folks in Bend don't like that, but over here around the central coast of Oregon, I should say. But remember, down dip into the subduction zone is where this activity is kicking up. And I want to pull up the activity since about, let's go back since about March 1st to today. And look at this activity that's kicking up here. It's been about 7 days now of movement. Most of this 1,434 epicenters of tremor has occurred within the last 7 days, even though it goes back to the first. 7 days of activity is mostly up here on the southern end of the Cascadia, or I should say down here.
Isn't where it's occurring right now, in that where your mouse is, isn't that usually the most quiet area?
The most quiet area consists right around Eugene, northward to Salem,
Okay.
right here in this flat part. This area, I think we took a trip here earlier
Yeah.
last year, and it's flat, super flat. Yes, there's some mountain ranges, but nothing like down here in the south. And just this area is always low on the tremor area for some reason. But it's going to be the hardest area hit when it comes to the
quake.
not the quake, but the tsunami.
The tsunami.
That would come in because
so
it's
flat.
lowland and flat.
I remember driving that.
It's pretty
It's
flat
pretty
there.
flat.
But this is over the last, since about the 1st of March, 1,434 epicenters of tremor. And it's a pretty good number. It's a pretty...
quite the uptick.
It is definitely quite the uptick. So officially, I think we're calling an end to the quiet spell along the Cascadia subduction zone. So that's when I think we need to be on guard more. Let's go back here to the lack of earthquake. Look at that. Got all this tremor and nothing showing up here. Nada. So in that matter, we're going to go ahead and check out the activity on the, let's see if we can pull up the PNSN network here. Where is it? Seismograph stations here. And we're going to check out the data that's being recorded in the southern Oregon region here around Brookings, a station there, 3-component broadband, strong motion broadband station in the Brookings area. Let's see what they're reporting here for the seismic data that's being recorded here. So let's go back to the previous day and see what we got. The activity looks a little sketchy. Now remember, USGS or the PNSN not really showing anything out here. And there's not a whole lot. Definitely not a whole lot. Some of this earthquake activity looks as though it's distant somewhere. I know we've had a lot of threes and whatnot in Montana and Idaho. Some of that could be from there. But as far as local seismic activity, is definitely not a whole lot going on. Looks like maybe one over here. But what we look for in local earthquake activity on seismograph is there's not a whole lot on here, but maybe one right here, a distinct spike. All this other activity is just
Distant.
is definitely distant, or some type of
Interference, maybe.
possibly interference or movement somewhere else. But
Yeah.
as far as like localized earthquake, there's not a whole lot going on, at least on that station of the seismographs. We'll go ahead and check up a little bit further up north here into the region, Cape Blanco, Oregon. Let's see what these folks are reporting here. And I don't see anything listed on that seismograph station there for activity. See what we got. Come on, come on, come on. We don't have all day. Got some chicken barbecuing. So yeah, there's not a whole lot going on here, at least recorded on this station. I'm not for sure if this is even a localized quake, even though it may look like one. It looks kind of like a, I don't know what. It's maybe some type of tap or interference out there with that reading. But it does look pretty clear as far as earthquake activity goes. So maybe the USGS is telling the truth. But then again, we see activity in Northern California kick up at times, and it's just they don't report it. One earthquake way up north here in Washington, negative 0.7, a 2.2. Let's go ahead and look at the rest of California here, out in the Cobb Mountain region of Mount Konocti, Clear Lake volcanic fields. 43 earthquakes kicking up here around the Cobb Mountain region. with looks like most of it should be below the 2.5 threshold. Nothing above 2.5. Lucky for them. I'm sure they don't want to see any damage out there with all these quakes they're producing around the Cobb Mountain region. Further south.
I like how it kicks up when we're not there. We were hoping to feel a quake.
Yeah, unfortunately we didn't, but
I
it's all
know.
good. Couple earthquakes around Kenwood and the St. Helena area down south of here. And let's see. What we got? Eastern Sierra Nevada, pretty quiet. Some movement out here around the Concord area and southward up and down the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault. There is some activity down further south into the eastern crest of the Sierra Nevada around Mount Whitney southward in the Owens Valley area. This is kind of at the southern end of the southern Sierra Nevada fault zone. A couple other fault zones out here as well. Owens Valley Fault. It's close to the 1872 rupture section. Seen a little bit of separate swarming itself here. Quite a few twos and some ones kicking up there. Somewhat deep. At least one of them down to about 10 kilometers. And it's well north of the Ridgecrest fracture zone. So a little bit of heightened movement going on around the Ridgecrest region tonight. Southern California, at least the Pacific side, pretty active, but nothing major going on. No major swarming to take note up and down the board, though. Activity off the Elsinore fault system, which is up here to the west, and then the San Jacinto fault zone. No swarming to report throughout the Salton Sea area. There's that swarm of activity we can see here through the Garlock Fault up through Utah and into the Montana region. You kind of see this half of a horseshoe echo showing up there in the western part of the country. Alaska, pretty good amount of earthquake activity through the Cook Inlet, mostly microquakes, but most of it, I should say, is pretty deep. Subduction zone earthquake activity inland into Alaska. The Aleutian Trench remains relatively quiet on the all magnitudes map, with a little bit of activity out here around the northwestern part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, 5.1 east of the Kuril Islands, pretty shallow at 10 kilometers. There's that swarm of activity south of the Philippines into the Indonesia region, where it looks like there's just a painting of tectonic plates here moving around and swishing around over time. Quite a few fours and some fives in there as well. Pretty large uptick around the Kermadec Trench and the Tonga Trenches. Most of this is from earlier. Had a couple earthquakes into the 500 kilometer range and some activity north on the North Island area. 155 kilometer deep there, earthquake. The rest of the world, rest of the area over here around Greece, Tajikistan. I knew it was that.
Or
How come? No,
it was
you
Tajikistan.
Right? I remember last time you said it's Tajikistan.
I said Tahika.
So how come we're flip-flopping now? Now we're flip-flopping. Last time you said Tajikistan, so I was testing you. It's Tajikistan, right?
No, I think it was Tajikistan. I said Tahika, you said Tajikistan. So we ended
There's no A in there.
I know, that's what I said. But no, we ended up looking up. I think it was Tajikistan was the proper pronunciation.
Are you sure?
I think so.
Oh, goodness.
We'll look it up.
Tajikistan, you get it. You guys get it, right? It's right there on the map. It's a 4.6 in the blue circle.
It's our normal Friday night.
Good Lord. 4.5 in Greece as well. Down into Africa as well. We got a little bit of earthquake around Zambia. Wait a minute. How do you pronounce this?
That one?
Not the full name, but the country.
Zambia?
I'm pretty sure it's Zambia.
I believe so.
Getting into these.
At least we agree this time.
At least I'm not saying Tanzania, right? Tanzania. I know. Tanzania. I got corrected on that by quite a few viewers in my update one day. It's pretty crazy, but it's all good. It's all good. I just don't know a whole lot about that. I remember hearing about it in history class, but I don't know. That was a long time ago. So, what do we got in Puerto Rico as well? A little bit of activity around the northern part of the Puerto Rico Trench, your British Virgin Islands, seeing some activity. Although it has calmed down since earlier this afternoon. Seen a couple threes, upper threes, including a 4.0 in that area of the Puerto Rico Trench. Let's see what else we got. Did see the earthquake out in the South Carolina region, 2.1. New Madrid zone, pretty quiet. Look at that activity kind of stretching down south of the border,
I
though,
see that.
on the Imperial Fault. But I think overall, West Coast is pretty active. I mean, we've seen an increase in tremor over the past 7 days, an increase in activity inland with swarming inland, right up against the edge of the North American Craton. So definitely
But
showing,
very quiet in the tremor areas
well, as far as
as
earthquake
far as
activity,
earthquake
yeah.
activity.
It is kind of odd. There's not a whole lot going on up there. It's very strange. Let's go ahead and check out the solar weather. We do have an uptick in solar weather activity, including an M flare, an M2.2 spiked earlier this afternoon. It looks like it. See which area it came from. Looks like it came from AR 2964 sunspot in the southwest quadrant. This is the 9th strongest flare of the solar cycle 25 in terms of peak X-ray flux. We will look for that a little bit later as far as updates go. But it looks like right now, look at that. We're getting into a major G1 class storm. See that activity reaching up into the KP index of 5. So the auroras at the higher latitudes are looking pretty highly likely.
The 14th, it looks like we're getting into the
A
6th.
G2 is supposed to be, that's from that coronal hole.
Yeah.
Or not coronal hole, but it was the CME, the full halo CME that kicked off there earlier. They are predicting a moderate G2 storm may be possible once it arrives. So that's the forecast there. Looking pretty active, but definitely for sure we got the KP index raising up to at least a 5 G1 storm tonight. Right now, currently, that's the aurora forecast right there on the globe. So higher latitudes are looking pretty likely at seeing that storming. And that's pretty cool. Lucky for them, right?
Right.
Here in Northern California, it would take who knows what to be able to see one. But what do we got for sunspot activity? C flare. It's kind of funny. They've actually dropped these down, but we had the M flare kind of kick up here at an M2.2 earlier. So these are subject to change, like always. But the sun is in control. We're just here to observe it and to monitor the activity. Which it provides in our entertainment. So we'll see what happens here. Looks like there was a pretty significant, look at that, the absorption layer map here, right over the central part of Hawaii. It looks like maybe around the Hawaii area. Seeing that the absorption kick in. We haven't checked Hawaii. Let's go ahead and check out this real quick on the map. Let's see what's going on out here. Forgot about it because there's no earthquake activity showing up out here.
What
Nada.
in the world?
At least far as 2.5 and above. And
That's-
even the all magnitudes map, only
It's very
9.
quiet.
9 earthquakes.
Quiet as it's been in a while.
And yeah, that's super duper quiet out there in the Big Island. So we'll see what happens. That's kind of crazy. Either way, things are getting on the uptick, folks. Solar weather and earthquake activity for sure along the North American plate. So that brings us to, real quick, the question and answer show. I'm going to have Missy Mimi's get online on her on the live stream, and we're going to check out, see what folks have in question about the pretty much about anything about what's going on. We're taking the question and answer show right now. It is Friday night. Something that we like to do every Friday night here with me and Missy Mimi's. We'll take your questions and answer them if we can. And we'll continue this into the update video for sure. If anyone's got any questions or whatnot, we'll definitely be happy to answer those if we can. Good evening, everyone out there. Cindy Collins, Corey, Zambia.
I think we said it right.
Right? Zambia. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Ethan, thank you. From Washington, Corey, thanks for checking in. Of course, Cindy Collins, Lane Lair, looks like they've checked out. Leo as well. But what do we got, guys? What's going on out here? Speak up or forever hold your truth. Let's not make it an easy night. Come on, ask some questions.
Right?
We are ready. Let's go. What's going on? What do we got out here? I guess while we're waiting, we're going to go into, real quick, I'm going to go back here a little bit and chat about the North American Craton real quick. It is a large continental craton that forms the ancient geological core of North America. So there's a lot at stake, or a lot at play here when it comes to historical movement around this North American Craton. There's a lot that's happened. I'm not going to go into all of this. There's a lot. It's really cool to read. Definitely cool to read on the tectonic history about the Craton area and the whole. This just boggles my mind how the Earth used to be, like just one giant continent and whatnot. What do we got?
Ooh, that's a good question.
What do we got?
What does the proton mean on the solar page?
The proton. Let's go over here. Back to the
solar ham site. That's what they're asking.
Let's go back here real quick. Hold on a second here. Check here. Solar on the proton. What do you mean right here? Protons?
Yes.
Let's check here real quick, folks. Stand by for a quick second. I'm not even for sure. I haven't really even covered that all that often. The proton.
I'm guessing it's a type of flare of some sort, but a strong one.
We'll check that out real quick and see.
I will definitely check that out right now.
I've never seen that really amp
I've
up. I've seen it come up to about 5% chance or so. Let's stand by for 1 second here.
Sorry, I knew what you were asking me. Wasn't quite clicking though.
Go ahead and read that.
So a proton, according to this, is a positively charged nucleus of the hydrogen atom. For reasons solar scientists do not fully understand, these protons are sometimes released during usually strong solar flares. The particles travel at very high speeds, several 10.000 kilometers per second, and can bridge the sun-Earth distance in a matter of hours.
So it looks as though.
So it's like
look at this uptick
it's a
here.
Flare, basically.
It's associated with some strong flaring.
Yeah, proton flares. They're associated with very strong solar flares, basically.
That's a pretty good question. That kind of stumped me right there for a
I
second.
know. See, they're not making it easy on us.
Ace high energy protons, ace low energy protons, electrons and protons there. So
basically,
yeah,
a proton is released from a flare, and when it's a low solar flare, it releases a smaller energy of proton. When it's an extremely high one.
And what effect that has as far as the higher protons, I'm not 100% certain on that one.
That's a good question.
That's very good.
Well,
I'm definitely not a nuclear scientist or that's a really good one there. I've always wondered about that myself. So
well, here's an example. It says during the Bastille Day event, July 14th of 2000, the first protons arrived already within 30 minutes after the peak of a solar flare.
From sun to Earth?
From sun to Earth.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Because of their high speed, protons can be very high energies. As such, they constitute a radiation threat to astronauts, and particularly during their extra vehicle activities or spacewalks.
Wow. That's pretty good.
It's a good question, and we learned something new, too.
Yeah. I mean, I know about protons and neutrons and all that stuff, but it's just...
We don't see it very often.
Yeah, we haven't really...
Nothing in a major way, so...
What else we got for cues?
Let's see here.
What do we got? Got any questions?
Let's see. John J says, right there.
Do you know anyone that owns their own private earthquake detector, like the ones from Raspberry Shake? Volcano Discovery, a good site. Do I know anyone who owns their own private earthquake detector? No, I don't.
Yeah, Volcano Discovery is a good site. I use that often.
We do, but also at the same time, they're loaded with
Yeah.
tons of ads and pop-ups, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to show them on here because there's so many ads. It's overrun with a spam of ads on Volcano Discovery, but they are a good site when it comes to getting volcanic information globally. I've noticed the lack of earthquakes in my area. I remember a few when I was younger, but lately nothing. Not really a question, just wondering what you think. Which area is this?
Corey, we're without giving up too much information.
Oh, right here. It's down here on the bottom.
Oh, north, almost Canadian border in Washington.
Into Washington. Well, there's definitely been quite a bit of activity in the microquake department up into the Canada region lately. Go ahead and check out the Earthquakes Canada map here. I don't think we've checked them out tonight. Where was that at? What was?
It was north, almost to the Canadian border in Washington.
Into Washington. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of activity around the southern end of the Vancouver Island ranges, and offshore, obviously, with the Cascadia activity. But I don't know. It's kind of just like here in Northern California, the Bay Area. You know, a lot of people think, they go to San Francisco or whatnot, they're going to feel an earthquake, and even in the Bay Area, it's been relatively quiet in terms of recent shaking and far as feeling earthquakes in the Bay Area. So it's just I think it's got to do with the just the time. You know, it's kind of a quiet time for a certain area, like up in your region. And for example, the Bay Area as well, they haven't seen any sufficient major earthquakes in that region either. Here's a 4.5 map of the Bay Area over the last 30 days. Nothing, not a
Jeez.
zip zero. Look at the West Coast, nothing. So
Oh, wow.
it just it just all depends, on how the plates are interacting with each other. What else we got here?
Nothing else so far.
Let's see. Mostly protons become accelerated either in the solar atmosphere during the solar flare or in interplanetary space by coronal mass ejection shock. Thanks for that info there, Cindy, on that data. What else we got here, folks? Anything going on? Anything going on? Who said happy Friday? Cindy, that's right. Happy Friday. It is Friday.
Woohoo.
We got to watch our chicken out in the barbecue.
I know, we're
We're going to burn our chicken.
Nothing new.
All right, guys, we're going to call it. I do hope everyone has a great Friday evening. And we will chat you guys a little bit later.
Stay safe out there, guys. Peace out.
Have a good night, everyone. Peace out.